The Strange Banana Skin from Hawaiian Folklore, public domain reading. Kukali, according to the folklore of Hawaii, was born at Kalapana, the most southerly point of the largest island of the Hawaiian group. Kukali lived hundreds of years ago in the days of the migrations of Polynesians from one group of islands to another throughout the length and breadth of the Great Pacific Ocean. He visited strange lands now known under the general name Kahiki or Tahiti. Here he killed the great bird Halulu, found the deep bottomless pit in which was a pool of the fabled water of life. He married the sister of Halulu and returned to his old home. All this he accomplished through the wonderful power of a banana skin. Kukali's father was a priest or kahuna of great wisdom and ability, who taught his children how to exercise strange and magical powers. To Kukali, he gave a banana with the impressive charge to preserve the skin whenever he ate the fruit, and be careful that it was always under his control. He taught Kukali the wisdom of the makers of canoes, and also how to select the fine-grained lava for stone knives and hatchets, and fashion the blade to the best shape. He instructed the young man in the prayers and incantations of greatest efficacy, and showed him charms which would be more powerful than any charms his enemy might use in attempting to destroy him. And he taught him those omens which were too powerful to be overcome. And thus Kukali became a wizard, having great confidence in his ability to meet the craft of the wise men of distant lands. Kukali went inland through the forests and up the mountains, carrying no food save the banana which his father had given him. Hunger came, and he carefully stripped back the skin and ate the banana, folding the skin once more together. In a little while the skin was filled with fruit. Again and again he ate, and as his hunger was satisfied, the fruit always again filled the skin, which he was careful never to throw away or to lose. The fever of sea roving was in the blood of the Hawaiian people in those days, and Kukali's heart burned within him with the desire to visit the faraway lands, about which other men told marvelous tales, and from which came strangers like to the Hawaiians in many ways. After a while he went to the forests and selected trees approved by the omens, and with many prayers fashioned a great canoe in which to embark upon his journey. The story is not told of the days passed on the great stretches of water as he sailed on and on, guided by the sun in the day and the stars in the night, until he came to the strange lands about which he had dreamed for years. His canoe was drawn up on the shore, and he lay down for a rest. Before falling asleep, he secreted his magic banana in his malo, or loincloth, and then gave himself to deep slumber. His rest was troubled with strange dreams, but his weariness was great and his eyes heavy, and he could not arouse himself to meet the dangers which were swiftly surrounding him. A great bird which lived on human flesh was the god of the land to which he had come. The name of the bird was Halulu. Each feather of its wings was provided with talons and seemed to be endowed with human powers. Nothing like this bird was ever known or seen in the beautiful Hawaiian Islands, but here in the mysterious foreign land it had its deep valley, walled in like the valley of the Arabian Nights, over which the great bird hovered looking into the depths for food. A strong wind always attended the coming of Halulu when he sought the valley for his victims. Kukali was lifted on the wings of the bird god and carried to this hole and quietly laid on the ground to finish his hour of deep sleep. When Kukali awoke, he found himself in the shut-in valley with many companions who had been captured by the great bird and placed in this prison hole. They had been without food and were very weak. Now and then one of the numbers would lie down to die. Halulu, the bird god, would perch on a tree which grew on the edge of the precipice and let down its wing to sweep across the floor of the valley and pick up the victims lying on the ground. Those who were strong could escape the feathers as they brushed over the bottom, and they could hide in the crevices in the walls. But day by day the weakest of the prisoners were lifted out and prepared for the great bird Halulu's feast. Kukali pitied the helpless state of his fellow prisoners and prepared his best incantations and prayers to help him overcome the great bird. He took his wonderful banana and fed all the people until they were very strong. He taught them how to seek stones best fitted for the manufacture of knives and hatchets. And then for days they worked until they were all well armed with sharp stone weapons. While Kukali and his fellow prisoners were making preparation for the final struggle, the bird god had often come to its perch and put his wing down into the valley, brushing the feathers back and forth to catch its prey. But frequently the search of the bird was fruitless. At last the great bird became very impatient and sent his strongest feathers along the precipitous walls, seeking for victims. Kukali and his companions then ran out from their hiding places, and they fought the strong feathers, cutting them off and chopping them into small pieces with their stone weapons. Halulu cried out with pain and anger, and sent feather after feather into the prison. Soon one wing of the bird was entirely destroyed. Then the other wing was broken to pieces, and the bird god, in his insane wrath, put down a strong leg armed with great massive talons. Kukali uttered mighty invocations and prepared sacred charms for the protection of his friends. After a fierce battle, they cut off the leg and destroyed the talons. Then came the struggle with the remaining leg and claws. But Kukali's friends had become very bold. They fearlessly gathered around this enemy, hacking and pulling until the bird god, screaming with pain, fell into the pit among the prisoners, who quickly cut the body of the bird into fragments. The prisoners made steps in the walls and by the aid of vines climbed out of their prison. When they had fully escaped, they gathered great piles of branches and trunks of trees and threw them into the prison until the body of the bird god was covered. Fire was thrown down and Halulu was burned to ashes, and thus Kukali taught by his charms that Halulu could be completely destroyed. But 2 of the breast feathers of the burning Halulu flew away to his sister, who lived in a great hole which had no bottom. The name of this sister was Namakahea, and she belonged to the family of Pele, the goddess of volcanic fires, who had journeyed to Hawaii and taken up her home in the crater of the volcano Kala'u. Namakea smelled smoke on the feathers which came to her, and knew that her brother was dead. She also knew that he could have been conquered only by one possessing great magical powers. So she called to his people, "Who is the great Kupua wizard who has killed my brother? Oh, my people, keep careful watch." Kukali was exploring all parts of the strange land, in which he had already found marvelous adventures. By and by he came to the great pit, in which Namakahea lived. He could not see the bottom, so he told his companions he was going down to see what mysteries were concealed in this hole without a bottom. They made a rope of the hau tree bark. Fastening one end around his body, he ordered his friends to let him down. Uttering prayers and incantations, he went down and down until, owing to counter-incantations of Namakahea's priests who had been watching, the rope broke and he fell. Down he went swiftly, but remembering the prayer in which a falling man must use to keep him from injury, he cried, "Oh, Ku, guard my life!" In the ancient Hawaiian mythology, there was a frequent mention of the water of life. Sometimes the sick bathed in it, and they were then healed. Sometimes it was sprinkled upon the unconscious, bringing them back to life. Kukali's incantation was of great power, for it threw him into a pool of the water of life, and thus he was saved. One of the kahunas, the priests, caring for Namakea, was a very great wizard himself. He saw the wonderful preservation of Kukali and became his friend. He warned Kukali against eating anything that was ripe, because it would be poisonous, and even the most powerful charms could not save him. Kukali thanked him and went out among the people. He had carefully preserved his wonderful banana skin and was able to eat apparently ripe fruit and yet be perfectly safe. The kahunas of Namakahea tried to overcome him and to destroy him, but he conquered them all and killed those who were bad and entered into friendship with those who were good. At last he came to the place where the great chiefess dwelt, and here he was tested in many ways. He accepted the fruits offered him, but he always ate the food in his magic banana, and thus he preserved his strength and conquered even the chiefess, and he married her. After living with her for a time, he began to long for his old home in Hawaii, and then he persuaded her to do as her relative Pele had already done, and the family, taking their large canoe, sailed away to Hawaii, their future home. If you enjoyed this reading, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.